Hi, Harsha. Then one of the questions is, I mean, you spoke a lot about the goal of achieving a primary fiscal surplus of 2.3. I mean, that's a long climb. But also, Fitch says that non-discretionary expenditure of the government, especially when it comes to wages and interest rates, is around 130% of government revenue. So that's a lot. And today I was just reading the plaintiff of Hamilton, and what they have stated is that while this is going on in July, the government still paid interest in dollars, not the government, Sri Lankan Airlines, so indirectly the government for this. So they were just complaining about how this is going through. So what are your thoughts? Have we got to a point where SOEs have to be structured? And also in like certain sectors such as hotels or retail, do we have to like completely privatize them? Because this is a very big burden, and it's sometimes like when you hear it from foreign bondholders, I mean, these are not just big companies such as BlackRock, but these are also pension funds. So they have a point. So I'm not saying like we should go too hard on taxation, but certain SOEs, what would be your view?
Yeah, I mean, SOE, I mean, you have to dichotomize this issue. One is who owns it, how is it managed on the one hand. The other is the cost recovered by the tariff. These are two separate things, right? One could argue that unless you have cost-reflective tariffs, neither the public ownership nor private ownership will be able to succeed, and I think most will agree here, right? So the Ceylon Electricity Board was to make 600 billion rupees loss this year. 600 billion, right? I mean, if you think about it, that's a colossal amount of money, right? So by adjusting tariffs, I hope that the losses would reduce. But as we speak today in Parliament, the MPs are meeting with the officials and others on the restructure of the Ceylon Electricity Board. This is a good thing. And we have been talking about it for 20 years, how DISCOs and the TRANSCO and the GENCOs need to be separated. And this behemoth of an agency or institution, broken into several pieces. How that is going to be done, I think there will be some agreement in Parliament, which is good. And that should have, support from political parties, immaterial of what the ideologies are, because ultimately what we need to make sure is that there is some sort of equity, some sort of social justice, right? And the subsidy that instead of coming through the SOE should come as cash transfers to the consumer and so on. So therefore, privatization is one option. Part privatization is another option. Competition is yet another option. So there are various different types of reform that should happen. And I don't think there is one single prescription for all different entities. So I'm sure that we will find a way that is acceptable to the people of this country. Whether that will happen within this government's tenure or whether it will happen down the road, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, I'm certain it will happen.
Sure. Right. And just to follow up on that, for the SOEs, do you think the Singapore model might work, a super holding? Because what we found was Singapore listed all of their SOEs under this. And what is interesting is that these SOEs which come under these super holding companies outperform the private sector. So, but one of the things they did was like the management was like excellent and highly paid. So would that be a sort of a solution?
I couldn't answer that because I think there needs to be more in-depth study, and I think the National Agency for Public-Private Partnership has been reconstituted as of this week. Hopefully, they will be able to shed light on that.
Right. Okay. And the other one is, for example, one of the main things would be an independent central bank, and so in that, just from the layman perspective, what do you mean by sort of an independent central bank? And like, what would be if it's too independent, how would it be accountable?
I mean, Dharma is the former central banker.
Right.
You know what it means to be independent. Means many things to many people, but what it means to us is that the central bank should be sort of taken off the grip of the treasury. So what we want to do is to remove the fiscal dominance of monetary policy.
Right.
You see, it is not the central bank's fault that it is printing money. Central bank is printing money because the treasury is forcing them to print money, right? So there are many models. I think in countries like New Zealand, it is in the constitution that if the inflation target is not met, the governor has to, find a new job. So there are some very strict targets put in some countries, but in other countries, they are not as tough as others. So here, what we would like is that the central bank is not allowed to purchase paper in the primary market, right? It can, for its purposes, trade in the secondary market, but the moment you start, purchasing in the primary market, then becomes a problem. So whether the structure of the board needs to change, whether the Secretary of the Treasury should not sit on the monetary board. Those things have been discussed, and there's a draft of a new Monetary Law Act, and the IMF is also pushing to get that Monetary Law Act. But accountability has to be there. Accountability, central bank has very clearly defined responsibilities. So if one gives the central bank the independence, then it has to also meet those objectives that the people of this country expect them to meet. If they don't meet that, then they have to be held accountable in some way or the other.
Right. And Dr. Harsha, just one last question from me. I mean, I was also there for the IMF meeting with you, and the most of the talk was around social security. So, I mean, the government has put 61,000 families on that, and there is like talk about an increase in Samurdhi. But do you think, I know the answer is already like this thing about how effective Samurdhi is, but very clear research already says that, this can be calculated by electricity tariffs. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that presentation made by Delaney the other day. It is one factor, but I think you need to consider other factors also.
Right.
So the Welfare Benefits Board has been re-established, and the World Bank has been working on identifying recipients for these cash transfers for some time, and they have experience globally. And it must be depoliticized. So a complete overhaul of the recipient list has to happen, because a large number of people who are getting Samurdhi shouldn't be getting Samurdhi, and a large number of people who should get Samurdhi are not getting Samurdhi. So Samurdhi is not the way to go.
Right.
It is too politicized, and the recipients are selected in a lot of the times non-transparent manner. I know as a grassroots politician that my political opponent who is in the government would say, I mean, this was started, come on, we all know, right? The polling agent's son or daughter was brought into the system to collect to select the people. And it happened, I think, some 20 odd years ago, and this is still happening. So they say, look, if you don't come to my political meeting, or if you don't participate in my rally, I won't, they threaten you that Samurdhi would be cut or something like that. So it's completely politicized, and it has to be depoliticized.